Hello and welcome back everyone to the next episode of the Jason's Take On. We are so excited to have you here and looking forward to this discussion around customer success isn't just a department. My name is Jason Whitehead and I am based in the Washington, D.C. area, and I'm here with my co-host over in London, Jason Noble. So for those of you who are new to our podcast, we talk about customer success and issues related to that and how organizations can be more successful and make their customers more successful. And you can follow us on LinkedIn on our company page for the Jason's Take On, or check out our website at thejasonstakeon.com. So before we jump in, just a little bit about my background. I've been working in the field of customer success and software user adoption for over 25 years now, and have done a variety of training and consulting, as well as managed internal departments and teams. I've really been around the IT world for quite a while, and it's just been a great pleasure to see how it's evolved and how things are changing, and really love this opportunity to work with Jason to look at how customer success can grow and evolve in the future. Jason, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, we'll do. Hi, everyone. So Jason Noble, I'm based over in sunny Twickenham in West London in the UK. A very similar background to Jason. So I've been around in the technology industry for a good few years now, working a variety of different kind of customer-facing roles, from customer support, customer service, professional services, project management, pre-sales, and then more recently with startups and big organizations in the world of customer success, building and leading customer success teams. Currently working for an organization called Vinley, who are based in Dallas in the US, helping build up their European operation and leading their customer success function. So it's a very similar background. And as Jason said, really excited to be here and having gone through this whole journey as to where customer success came from, to be able to share kind of little nuggets of information and learnings that we've got.
Excellent, great. And for those of you who've listened before, we like to start each episode off with what we call our bold challenge question, because we are all about challenging CS leaders to go and take bold action to improve the practices of customer success in your organization. So the bold challenge question for this week is, what bold changes can you make to inject a customer success focus into the DNA of every department of your organization? So give a think about that. We'd love to hear what you think. So please reach out to us on LinkedIn or follow us on Twitter and share with us there. So let's jump right in and get started then. So Jason, why are we talking about this and why is this an important topic today?
I think that the bold challenge question kind of really sums it up nicely, because it's about customer success for your customers. This isn't about customer success for a team. It's not about customer success for a department. And I really think the clue is actually in the name. This is about our customer success, and it's not up to one department to do that. So I think the bold challenge frames this really nicely as to how can we get all parts of the business to start thinking about our customer success. I think there are, though, a number of challenges with doing this, and we still are relatively early days in the formal discipline of customer success. And quite often we're still seeing customer success created reactively and late in an organization's or business's development. It isn't something many times that's created at the beginning as a kind of one of the visions that we have to do. And often it's being created because someone says, oh, we have a problem, we have a churn problem, we need someone to come in to fix it, we need a customer success department. And they're really missing the whole concept behind what customer success is all about. There's a thinking that it is just a specific function and department, it's there just to reduce churn, when it actually is a whole new ethos, a new way of doing business, and about driving different customer conversations and ultimately outcome and growth. And I think you people don't think about how to inject customer success mindset into the whole operation, get my words out there, or across the entire organization. They think, what can we do to fix a problem? We need a team called customer success. They don't think, how do we make sure customer success is at the heart of what we do? And because of that, you often get it created as a silo. It's created to fix specific problems or to supplement existing teams like support when you've got bottlenecks. It's often created as a reaction to a specific problem like churn, like I mentioned. And when it's done like that, the problem you have is that you're not getting other teams like your sales teams, product management, your development teams, etc., involved in what it is and why we're doing it, which then enforces the mindset that it is just a team. So it's a vicious circle. And really the other problem you've got is that when you do bring a customer success team or create a customer success team to fix a specific problem like churn, it reinforces the idea or mindset that actually churn prevention is someone else's job or responsibility, and it's customer success who are there to fix it, when in actual fact, that is far from the case. And we need to involve wider teams to understand what the challenges the customer's seeing with product, what are the challenges seeing in what think they've been sold, what they think they've bought, what are there any gaps around there, any deltas there. So you need the whole business involved. And this challenge here and this misunderstanding really can lead to a lot of big picture issues, which is why there is a misunderstanding about why you're doing customer success. And you've really got to shift that conversation around and change it to, we need to be talking about customer growth, customer values, customer outcomes. And I think it is something, as I said, that you see many organizations struggling with, both big ones and small ones. And what we're trying to do is change that shift to make it be there from day one, and be a company-wide way of working. So Jason, let me throw the question back to you then. Why does it need to be company-wide? Can you give us some more details around that, please?
Yeah, and I think you really hit the nail on the head too, where so many people just view it as one department and sort of chuck it over the fence and it's someone else's problem. And I've worked with a lot of organizations where you come in and the CS leaders will be working to focus on their internal team, but they'll also talk about all the problems they have collaborating effectively with sales or collaborating effectively with product management, because everyone's sort of in that silo mentality. And I think by sort of approaching it that way and allowing everyone else to be focused on business as usual, people really aren't embracing that shift of the new normal that we need for the subscription world, which is how do we make our customers successful? How is that part of everything that we need to do? And I think that really comes back to what is customer success? And it is more than preventing churn. It's about focusing on driving value and growth and helping to drive growth in our customers, which is a much bigger principle than people think it is. And I think also it really does have to come from the top. And I think you hit the nail on the head when you talked about people say, oh, we need a customer success department. No, I think you actually need more than that. And I think the mentality needs to really customer first in everything that you do. Absolutely. I've also seen where so many times a customer success department is created late or reacted because investor says you need a CS department, or they think if we have a CS department, it will position us better for that acquisition or that exit. And that sort of mentality that you need a CS department, I think it's really asking the wrong question. And I think the right question is more of what are you doing to ensure your customer success? And what are you doing to ensure their success in every action that your company takes? So it really is that organizational wide philosophy and approach. It's much too big for one department. I think it's also kind of interesting too that we're slowly, but very slowly, seeing the idea of customer success being taught in business schools and how it really hasn't caught on there yet too much. And I would like to see an explosion of more of it in the business schools and in business leaders talking about how this needs to be ingrained in everything you do. And I just don't think it's there yet, but really would like it to be.
That's really cool as well, because I think you're beginning to see it, aren't you? There's a few business schools, particularly in the US, that have started doing it, but like you say, not enough yet.
Not enough yet, and hopefully soon.
Yep.
So let me throw it to you though, that if this is the case in so many organizations, but not everyone, how do you know if this is a problem in your organization? Or what are the signs?
Great question. And I think that the thing is, there are a couple of things that you can look for to identify when you've got this. I think that the lack of company-wide visibility as to what is happening with your customers is a really key one, and a really key one to understand. What really is going on with customers, and without that lack of company-wide visibility, no one really understands what the customers are really saying. I think ultimately there's no clear voice of the customer in your organization. And I think when we talk about the voice of the customer, it's more than just a survey. This isn't just about going out and saying, how do you rate us for NPS, or would you recommend us? It's not just looking at customer satisfaction. It's really about understanding the feedback from your customers and making sure that that's shared throughout your organization. As part of that, you need to know who is closing the loop on these surveys. How are we getting the survey results and potential insight from our customers? And we know that they'd come back and say, yes, they'd recommend it, or no, they wouldn't. But often we don't know the why. We don't know why they're saying. We don't know what the feelings are behind it, the emotions behind it. So it's super important to understand that. And as part of that, how do we then share that closed loop feedback within the business, and make decisions based on that real data, not just the whether they would or wouldn't recommend us? That's a really key thing. And I think the other thing is, how do we make the feedback actionable? What we want to do is take that feedback from our customers and make sure we can do something from it, or something with it rather. That's one of the really key things here. And one of the really, I think for me, one of the clear signs that you're hearing that no one is taking on board customer feedback. You hear that from your customers saying, yeah, we give you your feedback, no one's doing anything with it. That's a really key sign. And quite often that's when I like to think of a black hole around feedback. Feedback comes into a business, but nothing ever gets done by it. And we know, we laugh, but look how many surveys we all get now on a daily basis. And,
Mm-hmm.
I know there are ones where you working in the industry, you want to give real decent feedback that they can do something with, but you never hear back from them. Tends to be worse in B2C organizations where there is a bigger black hole. But why bother listening to the feedback and asking for it if you're not going to even do the courtesy of responding and say, particularly when you've left something decent,
Mm-hmm.
for them to say it. So I think organizations really need to focus on that and make sure that we don't have these black holes around customer feedback. I think that the key thing there is that nothing ever gets done about the feedback. The feedback doesn't get shared with a wider product team. So you need to make sure your product team understand what the customers are saying. Your product team understand the voice of the customers. And then, once you share the feedback, how do you make it actionable? Rather than just have the feedback and listen to it, how do you do something with it? I think you also find that most organizations and teams aren't mapping all of their actions to kind of that post-sale customer journey. No one's saying, how is what I am doing creating an amazing customer experience, or how is what I'm doing helping the customer achieve greater outcomes than they can do on their own. I think those things are really important. And it is that key is to make sure one of your roles as a customer success leader or customer success professional is make sure you are sharing in the right way that customer feedback. I often say that, as a customer success leader, you are the voice of the customer. And mm-hmm. At times it can be quite a lonely place because people don't want to hear the feedback. It's not always very positive feedback. So you need to make sure you can present it back to the business in the right way. So I think there are a couple of things that we can look at to understand, do we have a challenge where customer success is only just one team? Mm-hmm. And how do you kind of get it out to the rest of the teams? I mean, now we've kind of talked about, what's the challenge here? How do we know when we've got this challenge? What for you, Jason, what are some of the things that we can do about this, and how do we fix this?
Yeah, that's always the challenge, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Recognizing the problem's easy, but finding how to solve is a tough one. I think we sort of alluded to it before with the idea that it has to come from the top, and you need to get the top executives to really recognize and internalize that this is an issue and help them to take action to resolve it. And if you can't get it at the top, you can make so much progress before you're going to hit a wall. And I think to your point as well, as a CS leader, you need to start building, those collaborative working relationships and working sessions, working groups with other departments. You've got to, collaborate with sales and marketing and product, and you need to get them to understand why these are such important issues. And I think there's also the need to help push upwards common customer focused goals. Far too often we hear that customer success is responsible for ensuring a high NPS score. And well, no, I think these need to be company-wide goals. So no one department can make it happen, but any one department can really make it sink. And any bad experience can make it sink. Any bad execution can make your NPS sink. So you really do need to take a company-wide approach looking at things like that, because it is a company impact. And I think you also need to look at and understand what is it that CS can really own and facilitate, but really they need to recognize what are the limitations of their ability and where do they need to get the other departments to collaborate, work effectively, figure out how they're going to get where they need to be, because you're not going to do it on your own. I think, Jason, you might have been the person who was telling me that as a CS leader, they spent a third of their time hands-on with customers, a third working with their team and building their team, and then a third really growing the internal alignment and working with the other departments. And I think it's so important to spend at least that much, if not more, time trying to figure that out right.
I think it's such a key thing, isn't it? Because you often, for me, I always talk about 3 different types of customers. Mm-hmm. You've got your customers, you've got your internal team. You're responsible for your team's success, which is a really privileged position to be in. But also, as you say, the other one is your stakeholders internally. They're your customers. So how do you make sure they're successful? And what do you need to do to get that engagement?
Yeah. And I've also talked several times and included in our training and in our success chain concept too, of part of it needs to be empowering the other parties to drive their own success and to drive the success of the organization. And as a CS leader, I think you need to help not just make the other departments aware of the need for customer success and customer focus and delivering on customer outcomes, but help your other internal departments become an amplifier, help them become a voice for you out to the customer and really get everyone there. So I think CS has that role to facilitate and make sure that things are going forward. You also mentioned it, and I think this is so important too, making sure that your customers have a voice at the table.
Yep.
And that depends on your internal reporting structure, internal setup. Get that voice of the customer reflected in internal management meetings. If it's not on the agenda, if people are not using that input or their feedback as a key input, that's probably an issue that you need to figure out how do we resolve that. And even I would recommend in some organizations, get it represented up to the board too. This is what our customers are telling us. This is what we need. This is how we're going to get there. And I do think that customer success is going to be the new battleground for a lot of software organizations. It's going to be less about features and whistles. It's going to be the outcomes that customers deliver. And when you get to the point that you can prove consistently that you deliver greater business outcomes to your customers than your competitors, that's when you're going to really see sales skyrocket, and when you're going to have faster, easier sale than just on features alone. So get there.
Yeah.
Related to that too, I think, it needs to be concise. When you represent the voice of the customer though, it needs to be fast and precise, and you need to be clear what people said and what to do about it. And I think CS, can really represent the intelligence around what the customer said and what it needs. It doesn't need to be a verbatim transcript, but you need something clear and fast that people can action without having to spend too much time really pondering into the details. You do the details, but tell people not so much the what, but the so what. And I think it also needs to be clear that you're capturing all customer engagement information and data. Can you show that you have a CS tool that are capturing customer data around the product? Are you capturing data around your interactions with the customer? Are you being able to really build up a big, rich picture about what's going on with it? And how can you make this case for getting this information? So those are some thoughts around that. Let me ask you, Jason, though, switching this back to you, how would you handle it if your senior executives are not customer focused, but are investing in CS, to help get them, quick, they're looking to invest in CS to get a, quick profitable investor exit or something similar like that. So they haven't really bought into the ethos, but they'll throw some money at the problem.
I think you've hit on some really key things there about representing that voice of the customer, and how do you do that back to your senior leadership team, back to your board even, which I think is a great idea to do, but to make sure that it's concise, actionable. And as I said earlier on, as the representative of the voice of the customer, really, it can be tough. And I think you've really got to understand what the rest of the team want to see from it. What are the actionable things that can be done? What's the impact from the business? So really don't just play back what the customer said, but give them some insights from what the customer said. So what you can do is you can start working with other team members, with other teams, to start break down any silos that there are and try and understand what the impact of this feedback on the product team, for example, is, what the impact of this feedback is on the support team. And I think the other thing as part of this, you by the very nature of what we're doing, I think you've got to be very resilient in the world of customer success and have a thick skin. Sometimes what our customers are telling us isn't always positive. Sometimes it is, but sadly we don't get customers phoning up that often and saying, "Love what you guys are doing. Thank you for this." They're telling you when they've got problems and what you can do with it more often than not. But it's great feedback, and so you do need a level of resilience around that, I think. And also don't be worried or concerned if your ideas get shot down to start with. Just reassess, what can we do differently about this? If the way you're presenting it back to the wider team doesn't work, have some one-on-one conversations and understand why. I think you're the person that's out there meeting your customers, understanding what they're saying, and it's how you make sure that's represented back to the business. And I think the other thing is you need to be willing to change your approach to how you do customer success and how you engage with other people in your organization. One of the big challenges we've got with customer success is that there isn't a simple way of doing it that you can just replicate from business to business. You've got to look at what is specific about your organization and your customers. So understand that and work with the other people in your business. I think as I said on that, you may come from an organization that you've done customer success this way, you work this way, but that old way doesn't work where you are now. So again, in the very nature of what we do in customer success, you've got to be agile in how you deliver and how you evolve what you deliver. And I think that's really important. I think you talked about this, Jason, as well, when you did some of your organizational development work, that you are in effect the change agent.
Yep.
You're there to help progress and push that change. And it could be a really significant transformation, but you're there as the change agent to do this in your business. and start focusing on the use of self and how do you get everyone to adjust to get on board with the change. Right? And don't forget, you're not the customer success department. You're there to help the organization become more customer focused and more customer centric. As I said, it can be lonely and hard when you realize this and recognize this, but it's important. And that's some really big steps. And as you build up that kind of following and team within the organization, that will grow less and less. And people will buy in more to what you're there to do and understand why you're delivering what you're delivering. So you're there to build the coalitions to make this change possible. And as I said, once you've got the coalition there, it's much easier to get the next one and the next one, and the next one. You're not just trying to convince a person, you're actually trying to convince the whole business that this is the right thing to do. This is why we're doing this. And for me, I think it's one really exciting thing to do within customer success. You are working on huge organizational shifts, particularly if customer success has been created late in the day for that organization. And you really need to represent the voice of the customer back in these senior meetings. I think it's quite easy to get people to focus on reactive things like churn and problems like churn, and they're easy to understand, but customer growth and values, I think, are a lot harder. I don't know if there are any other things that you could add to this, Jace.
Yeah, I think a couple, one that comes to mind is don't boil the ocean.
Yeah.
Like break this into small manageable parts that people can understand, and it can not just lonely, but I think it can be frustrating when you have the aha and the epiphany and you're there and everyone else is not in the same place. So start small, meet them where they are and move them to a little bit each time. And I think you need to understand the starting point for the other people and know where they are and how you can adapt to reach them. And when we talk about use of self, it's I understand where I am, I understand where they are. They're not going to come to me, I have to go to them and bring them along. So I think that's definitely good. And, one technique that I think is really important is to plant seeds with people and don't push for too much too fast. Recognize they will need time and evidence to process things and to think about things, and sometimes need repetition. One thing that's been helpful too is throw out a few really impactful questions, and then people just sit with the question, and so they have time to think and process stuff. And you might say something like, here's a question we should discuss in the next meeting, and then give people that week or so to go and process it, and at the next meeting start it out or interject that. And I think similarly, building a coalition outside of the boardroom. When people are thinking about a question before the next meeting, follow up with them individually to find out where they are, offer more insights or evidence, and help steer their thinking. But remember, they need to process things and get where you want them to be on their own and in their own time, and it's going to be different. So don't get frustrated when they get there if they don't get to exactly the same place as you do at the same time and same way. I remember when I was a kid growing up, I'm the youngest of three, and my brother and sister, every so often, they really didn't know how to adjust their style to my father. So if they were asking my dad for something, they'd go and ask and he'd say no. Then they would come to me and I'd say, well, what did you do? And I said, well, that was the wrong approach. And depending on the issue, I'm like, oh, that's an easy one. Give me a day. I'm like, well, this one's going to take 2 weeks. So I would sort of, go up to my father and sort of plant a sideways question and say what I had to say, and then leave it and shut up and not mention it, and come back 2 weeks later and would just offer, hey, do you remember we were talking about X? And so he's like, oh yeah, that's fine. Go for it. So it really was the importance of learning how to adjust for your audience and to figure out, how do I reach them in a time that's going to work for them and still come back? So I think some people get frustrated when they don't adjust their style, and they really do need to. So,
cool thing is you were only 5 when you're having those really intellectual conversations as well, Jace. Started very early, my friend.
It did indeed. I've got a 5-year-old now, and the stuff that he comes up with just blows me away. So anyway, those are just some things that I think, as you're looking to see executives and try to get there, you do have to build that coalition, start small, break it into pieces. Don't get frustrated, and recognize you're not going to win every fight, but if you can get enough little pieces in there, that's a catalyst for future change. One of the things I love too about what you were saying though, about asking for the voice of the customer and getting the customer to present the same information that you said to the executives. Sometimes they will hear it better if it comes directly from the customer than if it comes from you. And then they may come back in the next meeting. I've seen this happen. You've been saying something for months. A customer says something right to the salesperson, another executive, and then they come in the next day like, we've got to do this immediately, like it's new information.
We've all seen that many times. Frustrating.
But it's frustrating, but it's reality. That's just part of the game. It is good fun.
But I think it is that's trying to get the buy-in from your peers in the exec team your board is really key thing to do. And I think there's some really key points there.
Yeah.
I think that what I'd go back to is kind of our bold recap question. Really, please, guys, have a think. We would love some input from you guys. Please let us know. But what bold changes can you make, or have you made, or are you making within your organizations to inject that customer success focus really into the DNA of every part and every department of your organization? So do have a think about that. But look, really a great conversation. Thank you very much for listening.
Yeah, thank you so much.
More exciting guests and topics that we're planning. So really looking forward to more, but a big thank you from me.
And a big thank you from me as well. Have a great day, everyone. Bye now.
Thanks, guys.